Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's my pleasure.
President Zelensky repeats that he thinks Ukraine can win the war in 2023. We heard the US top general express doubts about this. French president, German chancellor say it's going to be a long war. Do you sincerely believe that you can win this war decisively this year?
If we do not believe that we can win this war, why we are fighting then? We want to put this war to an end more than anyone else in the world. And of course, this is our goal. And we are trying to mobilize all resources for that.
President Putin has said that he wants to continue. It seems that his strategy is a war of attrition, hoping to deplete Ukraine of its resistance, its weapons, its ammunition. And some in Western circles are concerned that the tide might be turning against Ukraine right now on the battlefield.
I think these circles should be concerned with themselves. The tide is not turning because Ukraine is fighting for the right cause. In essence, Ukraine is fighting against the right of a stronger to attack the weaker, against the right of a stronger to impose the will on the neighbor, who this stronger party deems as a weaker one. So we stand for international law, we stand for UN Charter, and therefore, the truth is on our side. So everyone who believes in truth and in the need to respect sovereignty and territorial integrity of countries should be standing by our side.
What you need, obviously, is sanctions, money, but most importantly, maybe weapons. There's been an agreement to send tanks to Ukraine, but between the agreement and the reality, what is happening? Where are we on this key issue for Ukraine?
We need weapons, sanctions, money, and solidarity. And on these four items, every country in the world can find the best place for itself. For example, if a country of a global south does not want to send weapons, it can express political solidarity with Ukraine and with the principles it defends by voting in favor of respective UN General Assembly resolutions. Others can provide weapons, someone else can give money, someone else can impose sanctions. So there are plenty of ways to support Ukraine. And as regards the tank coalition, yes, it exists. It's some trainings on tanks are already taking place. Some countries are solving issues with spare parts for the tanks which they want to deploy to Ukraine. So I have no doubts that this process is on track. It's just a matter of time when these tanks will be delivered.
Months?
Weeks.
What about fighter jets? I mean, this is still something that's not agreed upon. You think that it's good to anticipate maybe already?
This is a more long-term project, but not too long. Of course, you see, planes should not be considered in isolation. This is why we speak not about planes, but about platforms. Planes are important also as part of the air defense system to shoot down Russian missiles, attacking our critical energy infrastructure and killing civilians. With regard to planes, the strategy is different compared to other weapons. When we speak about previous types of weapons, it usually worked this way. First, the decision to provide weapons was announced, and then trainings for Ukrainian soldiers to use these weapons were organized. We propose to turn tables and to first begin trainings for Ukrainian pilots, pending final decision on the planes.
But this means that you think F-16s or MiGs will eventually be supplied to Ukraine despite opposition in Washington or in some other places?
I don't see opposition in Washington and other places. I think it's rather decision-making. We should be speaking about decision-making process. It's true that decisions have not been taken yet, but I have no doubts that these decisions will be taken. Listen, since February last year, we in Ukraine knew that we need to receive 7 types of weapons to be capable to stop Russia and kick them out of Ukraine. In 12 months, we received 6 out of 7. So we call it the Big 7. And 6 out of 7 positions are filled now. And every weapon, every position started with a no, which in the end became yes. So I have no doubts that the same pattern will be applied to planes.
You have said that as long as Vladimir Putin is in the Kremlin, Ukraine is in trouble. This implies, obviously, that there should be a regime change in Moscow for peace to be ushered in Ukraine.
Not only Ukraine is in trouble. Look at Balkans, look at Central Africa, where Wagner mercenaries, with the support of the Russian government, are messing things up and creating problems and pressure on stable neighbors. Look at Syria. Look everywhere in the world, and you will see that the strategy of President Putin is destruction. Destruction, and he's also focused on undermining stability in various regions of the world. Because the only chance for Putin to win at least something is to create instability. Russia, and more broadly, more specifically, President Putin is not only Ukraine's problem. It's a global problem. It's also a problem of global South. It's the problem of global North. And no one is interested in having a permanent member of the UN Security Council and a nuclear power messing up with the world and trying to destabilize the situation everywhere.
So as long as he's there, there'll be trouble. The world should get rid of him. This is what you're advocating. Because some leaders in the West, the French president, Olaf Scholz, say, no, we don't have to crush Russia, we don't have to humiliate him, we need to continue talking to him. You believe it's wrong? I haven't
heard calls not to humiliate Putin for many months. This was the narrative that had existed before the large-scale invasion in Ukraine began, and it's a failed narrative. Only the people of Russia should decide on who will be leading Russia. The question is how to make the people of Russia understand that Putin is also their problem, and their life will be much better without him.
What about China? China is saying they want to mediate, offer a peace plan. We're also hearing the US warn China against delivering lethal aid to Russia. What is your take on those two issues related to China?
Of course, everyone is watching China as a global power, and we're looking forward to seeing these peace proposals, which Mr. Wang Yi, top Chinese diplomat,
you met with him recently?
Yes. He announced it in Munich. We had a meeting. We exchanged views on this. We will see what is in that plan, and we will draw our conclusions from there. But there must be certain red lines. And I think the common red line that Ukraine and China have is respect, absolute unconditional respect for territorial integrity of countries. And if any country in the world, I'm not speaking specifically about China, but if any country in the world sends weapons to Russia, it means that it helps Russia to violate territorial integrity.
Are you seeing indications China is doing so?
I said at this point I'm saying if any country in the world is doing that, it means that this country is acting against the principle of territorial integrity and destroys it with its own supplies. Because there is an important detail. Ukraine is exercising the right to self-defense, protected by UN Charter. So sending weapons to the country that defends itself is legitimate. It means that you help this country to defend. But sending country to an aggressor means to become a culprit and an accomplice in the crime of aggression.
You mentioned sending weapons. The Brazilian President Lula said, I am not sending weapons to Ukraine. I don't want you to do this. There is a problem that you have and Western allies have, is to convince countries in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, that they should support you. We've seen this at the United Nations. I believe you're going there for a new vote. Why can't you convince them more?
It's a good question, but I think the right answer to it will be there is a plethora of ways how countries can express themselves with regard to the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And if you cannot send weapons, you can support us politically by expressing solidarity in the United Nations, for example. You can refrain from supporting Russia in its attempts to circumvent sanctions. You can do many other things. As long as you are not helping Russia, you can always find a way of how to help Ukraine.
But why are so many countries doing this?
Because some are misled by the image of Russia. Some some enjoy historically good relations with Russia. Some try to remain friends with both Russia and Ukraine, which is very hard to do under these circumstances. We respect every opinion that exists in the world because these are sovereign nations. But our point is very clear. We defend ourselves, and it's legitimate to support us. Russia attacks. It's illegitimate to support Russia one way or another.
Are you hoping to get more votes in favor of Ukraine at the United Nations, where there's supposed to be General Assembly votes this week?
Well, we are working on that, definitely. That's the classic exercise of diplomacy, to collect votes in the United Nations General Assembly. And we are now particularly focused on working with the countries of the Global South, whom we respect and whom we want to express their solidarity with Ukraine, because we are approaching the anniversary of the full-scale invasion. But this is also the 9th anniversary of the beginning of the Russian aggression against Ukraine in February 2014, when they took over Crimea. Russia has violated virtually every rule of international law since then. And I think it's the most natural choice to defend international law by standing with Ukraine.
Dmytro Kuleba, I want to thank you very much for appearing on the France 24 interview, and thank you all for watching it.